I realized my boyfriend had been selling parts of my life long before I realized I was losing them. Not cheating, not yet. Something colder, something quieter, something that felt intentional. I was standing in my own apartment when a woman knocked on my door, smiling like she belonged there. I'm here for the camera. I didn't respond at first, because I didn't understand what she meant. But then I turned, and there it was, my camera. The one I saved up for 2 years to buy. The one I used to build my entire side hustle. The one that still had every memory card from trips I never even got to edit. And from behind me, calm as ever, my boyfriend Jason said, "Oh yeah, I sold it this morning." Just like that, like he was talking about an old chair, like it wasn't mine. Something inside me didn't explode. It just dropped, heavy, silent, final. I blinked slowly, trying to process what I'd just heard. "You what?" Jason walked into the living room like nothing was wrong, like this was normal, like this was a decision he had every right to make. "You never use it anymore," he said, "and we needed the money." That word used to feel warm. Now it felt like a lie. I looked at the woman standing at my door. She shifted awkwardly, clearly sensing something was off, but not enough to walk away. I stepped aside. "Take it," I said quietly. Jason didn't even look surprised, because he knew me, or at least he thought he did. He thought I'd stay quiet. He thought I'd swallow it like I always did. The woman grabbed the camera, mumbled a quick "thank you," and left fast, like she didn't want to be part of whatever was about to happen. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the apartment felt empty, not physically, emotionally, like something had just been removed that wasn't replaceable. I turned slowly. "How much?" 300, Jason said casually, already scrolling through his phone. "Relax. It'll help with bills." Bills. Funny how bills always showed up when it came to my things. But when it came to his new sneakers, his nights out, his investments, there was always money for that. I stepped closer. "You sold something I worked years for without asking me." He sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Maya, you're overreacting. It's just a camera." No, it wasn't. But the problem wasn't the camera anymore. The problem was him. Because in that moment, I saw something I'd been ignoring for months. He didn't see me as an equal. He saw me as an extension. Something that came with resources. Something he could use. And the worst part, he was comfortable doing it. That comfort didn't come overnight. That came from practice, from repetition, from knowing I wouldn't push back. I crossed my arms slowly. "You could have asked. I knew what you'd say." "Yeah," I said, voice tightening just a little. "Because it wasn't yours." That's when his expression shifted. Not guilt, annoyance, like I was making things harder than they needed to be. "We live together," he said. "We share everything." I stared at him, really stared this time, because something about that sentence didn't sit right. "We share everything?" "No, we don't, because I share, and he takes. There's a difference, a big one." "You think this is sharing?" I asked quietly. He rolled his eyes. "Don't start, Maya." Too late. Something had already started. Something I couldn't stop anymore. "Answer me," I said. "Do you think selling my stuff without asking is normal?" "It's not a big deal," he snapped. "You're making it one." I let out a slow breath, because suddenly I wasn't angry. I was aware of every little thing I'd brushed off. Every time he handled the finances. Every time he told me not to worry about money. Every time he redirected the conversation when I asked questions. Every time something didn't add up, but I ignored it. A cold feeling settled in my chest. "What did you do with the money?" I asked. "Bills," he said again, too quickly. "Which ones?" "Why does it matter?" "Because it does. Because something feels wrong. Because for the first time, I'm realizing I might not actually know you." But I didn't say that. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said. "You're right." He relaxed instantly. Of course he did. Because he thought this was over. He thought I'd go back to normal. Back to quiet. back to trusting him without question, back to not noticing. I'm just tired, I added, forcing a small smile. Long day. Yeah, he said, already distracted again. You've been off lately. Oh, that word almost made me laugh. If only he knew. I'm gonna shower, I said, turning away. Okay, of course. No questions, no concern, because he wasn't worried. He didn't think I'd changed. But standing under the hot water minutes later, everything replayed in my head. The camera, the hesitation, the money, the pattern. And for the first time, a thought hit me hard enough that I couldn't ignore it. What if he wasn't just controlling things? What if he was hiding something? Something bigger? Something that explained why he acted like everything I owned already belonged to him. Something that made this feel less like selfishness and more like a plan. I turned off the water, heart beating slower but heavier, because suddenly losing the camera didn't feel like the worst part. It felt like the first clue. And if I was right, then this wasn't just about taking my life back. It was about figuring out how much of it he'd already taken, without me even realizing it. And the worst part? I had a feeling that camera was just the beginning. The first thing I did after that shower wasn't confront Jason again. It wasn't check my bank account. It wasn't even cry. I sat on the edge of my bed, still damp from the shower, and asked myself one simple question. When did I stop paying attention? Because this didn't feel sudden anymore. It felt built. Slowly, quietly, carefully, like something had been happening right in front of me, and I just kept choosing not to see it. I grabbed my phone and opened our banking app. We had a shared account, his idea, of course. It's easier this way, he had said months ago. We're building a life together. At the time, it sounded right. Now it sounded convenient. For him, I scrolled through the transactions. First, nothing stood out. Groceries, rent, utilities, normal. Then I started noticing patterns. Small withdrawals, frequent, different amounts each time. Almost like someone was trying not to draw attention. My chest tightened slightly, because those weren't random. They were deliberate. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A transfer, not recent, not even from today. 3 weeks ago, $1,200, sent to an account I didn't recognize. There was no note, no explanation, just gone. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, trying to convince myself there was a simple reason. Maybe I forgot. Maybe he told me and I just didn't remember. But deep down, I knew he hadn't told me, because if he had, I wouldn't feel like this right now. This sinking, hollow feeling in my chest, like something was being quietly taken from me, piece by piece, and I was just now noticing the damage. I scrolled further. Another transfer, smaller this time, but same pattern, different account. No explanation. My fingers tightened around my phone. Okay, so this wasn't just about my camera. This wasn't just about one decision. This was a system, pattern, and I was on the losing side of it. I locked my phone and leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling, because suddenly, everything started connecting in ways I didn't like. The times he insisted on handling payments, the way he brushed off my questions, the subtle guilt trips whenever I pushed too much. You don't trust me? That line. He used it a lot, and it always worked, because I didn't want to be the insecure one. I didn't want to be the problem, so I stopped asking, and he kept taking. I exhaled slowly. No anger. Not yet. Just clarity. And clarity is dangerous, because once you see something clearly, you can't go back to pretending. The bedroom door creaked open. Jason leaned against the frame, arms crossed. You good? I turned my head, studying him. Really studying him this time. Same face, same voice, same guy I thought I knew. But something felt different now. Not about him. About me. Yeah, I said calmly. Just tired. He nodded like that was enough. Like he didn't need to look deeper, because he wasn't used to me having layers. Food's ready, he added before walking away. Of course it was. Dinner. Routine. Normal. like nothing had changed, but everything had. I followed him into the kitchen a minute later. He was already eating, didn't wait for me, didn't ask if I wanted anything. That used to bother me. Now it just confirmed things. I sat down across from him, watching him quietly. He didn't notice, or maybe he didn't care. "You're quiet," he said after a few minutes. "I'm thinking. About." I shrugged slightly. "Stuff." He smirked. "That sounds dangerous." Funny, because for the first time, it actually was. I picked at my food, not really hungry. "You remember when we first moved in?" I asked casually. He looked up, confused. "Yeah, why?" "You said we'd always be honest with each other." He shrugged. "Yeah, and we are. Are we?" I held his gaze for a second longer than usual. Then I nodded slowly. "Right?" Because I wasn't ready to show my hand yet. Not when I didn't know the full game. Not when I didn't know how deep this went. And definitely not when he clearly thought I was still the same version of me. The one who didn't question. The one who didn't notice. The one who didn't fight back. I pushed my plate away. "I'm gonna head out tomorrow," I said. That got his attention. "Where?" "Work thing," I replied smoothly. "Last minute." He frowned slightly. "You didn't mention it. Just came up." He studied me for a moment, like he was trying to figure something out. But then he nodded. "All right. No further questions. No concern. No curiosity." That told me everything I needed to know. He didn't care where I went, as long as I wasn't interfering. Perfect. Because tomorrow, I wasn't going to work. I was going to find out exactly where my money was going. And more importantly, who it was going to. Later that night, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I quietly grabbed his phone. I wasn't proud of it, but I wasn't going to stay blind anymore. His phone unlocked easily. Same passcode. Same laziness. I opened his messages first. Nothing obvious. Just normal conversations. Friends. Work. Random stuff. Then I checked his email. That's where things started getting interesting. Receipts. Transfers. Confirmations. Different accounts. Different names. Some of them looked like investments. Others didn't. My heart started beating faster. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't careless spending. This was organized. Intentional. And hidden. I took screenshots of everything I could find. Quietly. Quickly. Carefully. Because something told me I was only seeing the surface. And if I wanted the truth,
ED had sold that deeper.
much deeper. I put his phone back exactly where it was and lay down beside him. He shifted slightly in his sleep, comfortable, unaware, completely confident that nothing had changed. But as I stared at the ceiling in the dark, I realized something that sent a chill through me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This wasn't just about control. This was about secrets, big ones. And if I was right, then Jason wasn't just taking from me. He was using me for something I hadn't figured out yet. And tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly what that was, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew. Because something deep in my gut was telling me I wasn't just being lied to, I was being played. And I had a feeling I wasn't the only one. The next morning, I left the apartment before Jason even woke up. Not because I was in a rush, but because I didn't want to look at him. Not until I knew exactly who he really was. The city felt different that morning. Louder, sharper, like everything was moving fast. But I was the only one slowing down, paying attention to every detail. Because now, details mattered. I sat in my car for a few minutes before turning it on, going through everything in my head. The transfers, the receipts, the names. None of it felt random. And that meant one thing. This wasn't just him being careless or selfish. This was a system, and systems don't exist without purpose. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots I took last night. There were at least 6 different accounts, different names, different banks, but the pattern was consistent. Money going out, never coming back. My money, our money, no, my money. because I was the one funding most of that account. I zoomed in on one of the names that kept repeating. Evan Cole. The name didn't mean anything to me, but it showed up more than the others. More frequent transfers, bigger amounts, which made it important. And if it was important, it was a lead. I tapped into my contacts, searched the name. Nothing. Of course, Jason wasn't dumb enough to save it like that. But he was careless. Careless enough to think I'd never look. I opened social media and typed the name in. Dozens of profiles popped up. Too many. I narrowed it down. Location, mutuals, anything that could connect back to Jason. And then, one profile caught my attention. Not because of the name, because of the picture. Jason was in it, standing next to a guy I'd never seen before. Both of them smiling. Both of them looking comfortable. Too comfortable for someone Jason had never mentioned. My stomach tightened, because that wasn't a coincidence. I opened the profile, scrolled. More pictures. Same guy, same energy, same familiarity. Trips, nights out. Even one picture inside what looked like a high-end apartment. And Jason was there, relaxed, like he belonged. My grip on the phone tightened, because I knew that place wasn't ours. And I knew Jason didn't have friends like that. Not that I knew of, at least. I clicked on one of the tagged locations. Private club, membership only, expensive, the kind of place Jason couldn't afford. Unless my chest felt heavy all of a sudden. Unless he wasn't spending his own money. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling slowly. Okay, so now we had something. A name, connection, place. But none of it explained why. Why was he moving money like that? Why hide it? Why involve someone else? I needed more. I started my car and drove. Not to work. Not anywhere familiar. Just moving. Because thinking felt easier when I wasn't sitting still. I replayed everything in my head again. Every moment that felt off. Every conversation that didn't quite make sense. Every time he shut something down before I could dig deeper. And then one memory hit me harder than the others. 3 months ago, I had asked him about a charge I didn't recognize. It wasn't big, just enough to notice. He laughed it off, said it was a subscription thing. I didn't push. I should have, because now I realized something. That wasn't the first time. It was just the first time I noticed. And if I had noticed more, how much could I have stopped? How much had I already lost? I pulled into a quiet parking lot and turned off the engine. My hands were steady, but my mind wasn't, because the deeper I looked, the worse it felt. This wasn't just financial. This was calculated, layered, and intentional. And people don't do things like this without a reason. A reason big enough to risk everything. A reason worth lying for, worth stealing for, worth hiding for. I grabbed my phone again and opened Jason's messages from the screenshots. Most of them were normal, but there were gaps. Conversations that clearly existed, but weren't there anymore. Deleted, cleaned. That told me everything. He knew what he was doing. He knew it was wrong, and he made sure I wouldn't see it. Except he made one mistake. He underestimated me. He thought I wouldn't look, wouldn't question, wouldn't connect the dots. And maybe a week ago he would have been right, but not anymore. I zoomed in on one of the receipts again. There was an address attached, not a full one, just enough to trace. A building name, downtown, high-end, private access. My pulse picked up slightly, because now I had somewhere to go. I didn't hesitate. I started the car again and headed straight there. The drive felt longer than it actually was. Every second stretched. Every thought got louder, because this wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was confirmation. Whatever was waiting for me there, it was going to change everything. I parked across the street from the building and sat there for a moment. It was exactly what I expected. Modern, expensive, the kind of place where nothing happens without intention. I watched the entrance, people going in and out, well-dressed, confident, like they belonged. Jason didn't belong here, which meant he was pretending, or worse, He was part of something I didn't understand yet. I stepped out of the car, locking it behind me. Each step toward that building felt heavier than the last, because deep down, I already knew whatever I was about to find wasn't going to be small, it wasn't going to be simple, and it definitely wasn't going to be something I could ignore. I reached the entrance and paused for just a second, not out of fear, out of realization, because this was the moment everything shifted. The moment I stopped being the person who didn't know and became the person who did. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, and within seconds, I realized something that made my stomach drop. Jason wasn't just involved in something. He was already here, and he wasn't alone. The first thing I noticed wasn't Jason. It was how comfortable he looked. That hit me before anything else, because I had never seen him like that before. Not in our apartment, not with me, not anywhere in our life together. But here, he wasn't pretending. He wasn't trying. He wasn't adjusting. He belonged. I stayed near the entrance, just far enough to not be noticed immediately. My eyes locked on him across the lobby. He was sitting on one of those low, expensive couches, leaning back like he owned the place. Relaxed, confident, laughing. That sound hit differently now, because it wasn't the version of him I knew. It was lighter, unrestricted, like whatever weight he carried around me didn't exist here, and sitting next to him was the guy from the photos, Evan. Same face, same energy, same familiarity, except now, seeing them together in real life, it was worse, because there was no distance, no doubt. They weren't just acquaintances, they were close. Close enough that Jason's entire demeanor changed around him. Close enough that it made me feel like I'd been watching a completely different version of him this whole time. I took a step forward, then another, slow, controlled, because I didn't want to react too soon. I wanted to observe, to understand, to see what I had been missing. Evan said something I couldn't hear, and Jason laughed again, shaking his head. Then, Jason leaned forward slightly and slid something across the table, a small envelope. My stomach tightened instantly, because I didn't need to guess what that was. Money, cash this time, not digital, not traceable, deliberate. Evan picked it up casually, like this wasn't unusual, like this was routine, and that confirmed it. This wasn't random. This was a system, a repeated action, a pattern I was only just stepping into. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, clearer, because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I was watching the truth unfold in front of me, and it was worse than I expected. I stepped closer, close enough now that if Jason looked up, he'd see me, but he didn't, because he wasn't looking for me. Why would he? In his mind, I was still at home, still unaware, still quiet, still easy. Evan leaned back, glancing around casually. His eyes passed over me for a second, then stopped, just slightly, not enough to draw attention, but enough to register something. Me. Recognition flickered, then it disappeared just as quickly, and that's when I knew. He knew exactly who I was, which meant this wasn't just Jason's secret, it was theirs. Jason finally followed his gaze, and that's when everything paused. His eyes met mine, and for a split second, everything on his face disappeared. The confidence, the ease, the control, all gone, replaced by something raw, something unprepared, something scared. Maya, he said, standing up too quickly. There it was, the crack, the one I'd been waiting for. I didn't rush, didn't react, didn't raise my voice. I just walked toward him slowly, every step deliberate, every second controlled, because I finally understood something important. This wasn't the moment to explode. This was the moment to watch him break. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice tight. Funny, because I could have asked him the same thing. I stopped a few feet away, looked at him, then at Evan, then back at him. "I should ask you that," I said calmly. Evan didn't say anything, didn't move, but he didn't leave either. which told me something else. He wasn't worried. Not about me. Not about being caught. Which meant he didn't see me as a threat. Yet, Jason ran a hand through his hair, trying to recover. It's not what it looks like. Of course it wasn't. It was worse. I glanced at the table. The envelope was gone. Of course it was. Clean. Efficient. Like this wasn't their first time handling something like this. What does it look like? I asked. He hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. I can explain, he added quickly. Then do it, I replied. My voice didn't shake, didn't rise, didn't fall. And I think that threw him off more than anything, because he was used to emotion, used to reactions, used to controlling the narrative. But right now, he didn't have any of that. Evan finally stood up, slow, measured. He looked at Jason, then at me, and gave a small, almost polite nod. We'll talk later, he said to Jason, like I wasn't even part of the situation, like I was just background noise. That irritated me more than I expected. But I didn't show it. Jason didn't stop him, didn't introduce me, didn't explain. He just let him walk away. And that told me everything I needed to know. Evan mattered. I didn't, at least not in this space, not in this version of Jason's life. The silence between us stretched, heavy, uncomfortable. Finally, I broke it. How long? I asked. He frowned. What? How long have you been doing this? His eyes flickered, because he knew exactly what I meant. It's not what you think, he repeated. I almost smiled, because that line, it meant I was closer to the truth than he wanted me to be. I saw the transfers, I said. That did it. That's when the panic really hit his face. Subtle, but there. You went through my phone? He snapped. Ah, deflection. Classic. I tilted my head slightly. That's what you're worried about right now? He opened his mouth, then closed it, because he didn't have a good answer, because there wasn't one. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. Who is he? I asked. Jason glanced toward the exit, where Evan had just left, then back at me, and for the first time, he looked unsure, like he didn't know what to say, or what not to say. He's just someone I work with, he muttered. A lie, an obvious one, and we both knew it. I nodded slowly. Right? I said. Then I stepped back, just a little, creating space, not physically, mentally, because I had everything I needed from this moment. The fear, the hesitation, the lies, and most importantly, confirmation. This wasn't small. This wasn't accidental. And this definitely wasn't over. I'm going home, I said simply. Jason blinked. Wait, Maya. I turned before he could finish, because I wasn't done. Not even close. But I wasn't going to figure this out here. Not in front of him. Not when he was already trying to rebuild control. No, I needed to step back, think, plan, because whatever this was, it was bigger than I thought. And if I wanted the truth, I couldn't just react. I had to outplay him. As I walked out of the building, I felt his eyes on me the entire time, watching, calculating, trying to figure out what I knew and what I didn't. But the truth? I didn't know everything yet, not even close, but I knew enough to understand one thing clearly. Jason wasn't just hiding money. He was involved in something far deeper, something organized, something dangerous. And now that I had stepped into it, there was no going back, because whatever game he thought he was playing, I had just entered it. And next time, I wouldn't be walking in blind, because the next move was mine. I didn't go straight home. That would have been the obvious move, the predictable one. And right now, the last thing I wanted was to be predictable. So instead, I drove past our apartment and kept going. Jason would expect me there, waiting, angry, ready to confront him. He'd walk in already prepared with half-truths, excuses, and just enough emotion to make me question myself again. No, not this time. This time I needed distance. Not from him, from my old version of me. I parked outside a small coffee shop I used to go to years ago, back when I still made decisions without asking for permission, back when I still trusted my instincts. Funny how easy it is to lose that part of yourself without even noticing. I sat in the car for a minute before going in, staring at my reflection. Same face, same person, but something had shifted, something sharp, something awake, and I knew it wasn't going away. Inside, I ordered something I wasn't even going to drink and sat in the far corner, phone in hand, mind racing, because now I had pieces, but not the full picture. Jason, Evan, the money, the transfers, the hidden life, none of it made sense on its own, but together, it formed something structured, something intentional, something I needed to understand before I made my next move. I opened the screenshots again, zoomed in, analyzed every detail like it was evidence, because that's what it felt like now, a case, and I was both the victim and the only one trying to solve it. The names stood out again, Evan Cole, repeated, frequent, connected. Then there were others, less frequent but still there, different accounts, different recipients, almost like layers. Like money was moving through multiple hands. That wasn't normal. That wasn't careless spending. That was movement, designed movement, the kind that exists to avoid attention. My chest tightened slightly because I wasn't just looking at hidden spending anymore. I was looking at something organized, something deliberate, something that had rules. And if it had rules, it had purpose. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Why would Jason be involved in something like this? He wasn't ambitious. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't even that smart when it came to money. So how did he end up here? Then a different thought hit me. Not how. Because people don't step into something like this by accident. They're pulled in. Or they choose it. And if Jason chose this, then what did that say about him? I exhaled slowly, forcing my thoughts to slow down. I needed facts, not assumptions, so I shifted focus. That building, that place, it wasn't random. It wasn't public. It required access, connections, money, which meant Jason didn't just stumble into it. Someone brought him in. Evan. I picked up my phone again and went back to his profile. This time I looked deeper, scrolled further, analyzed everything, not just pictures, patterns, locations, tags. And then I saw it, a recurring name, not tagged often, but mentioned, subtly. Lena, no last name, no clear profile, just comments.
Ripley, mention.
Short, casual, but consistent. I clicked through, finally found a profile that matched. Minimal posts, private, but the few pictures available told me enough. Same places, same circles, same environment. She was connected to Evan, which meant possibly to Jason. My pulse picked up slightly because this was the first new piece that didn't come from Jason directly. This was outside him, outside his control, and that meant opportunity. I didn't hesitate. I followed the profile, sent a message. Simple, direct, careful. Hey, I think we might have a mutual connection. Would love to talk. I stared at the screen after sending it, not expecting a reply. Not immediately, but it wasn't about speed. It was about opening doors, because I couldn't get the truth from Jason. Not directly, not honestly, but someone else? Maybe. I put my phone down and finally took a sip of my coffee. Cold, bitter, unpleasant, kind of fitting. Minutes passed, then more. Nothing. That was fine. I wasn't in a rush, because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was moving, strategically. I stood up, threw the coffee away, and walked out, back into the car, back into motion. This time, I drove home, not to confront, not to argue, but to observe, because now I knew something important. Jason wasn't just lying. He was managing information, controlling what I saw, what I knew, what I questioned. And if I wanted to break that control, I had to play along, at least for now. When I walked into the apartment, everything looked normal. Of course it did. Jason was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, waiting. He looked up the moment I stepped in. Relief flashed across his face. Quick, subtle, but I caught it. "You're back," he said. I nodded, calm, neutral, unreadable. "Where did you go?" he asked. "Work stuff," I replied. Same answer as before. Same tone. He studied me, longer this time, trying to read something, find something, but I gave him nothing. Because now, I understood the game, and I wasn't playing the same role anymore. "I was worried," he added. A lie, but a good one. I walked past him casually. "You'll survive." That threw him off. I could feel it, even without looking, because I wasn't reacting the way he expected. And that made him uncomfortable. Good. I headed into the bedroom, set my bag down, and sat on the edge of the bed. Not exhausted, not emotional, just thinking, because everything had changed now. The power, the dynamic, the awareness, and the best part, he didn't know it yet. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. A message from Lena. My heart slowed, not sped up, slowed, because this was the first real step forward. I opened it. "Who are you?" I stared at the screen for a second, then typed back. "Someone who's been lied to." 3 dots appeared instantly, then disappeared, then appeared again. And when her next message came through, everything inside me went still. "Then we need to talk, because I think you don't know the half of it." My grip on the phone tightened slightly, because I already knew. Whatever this was, it was bigger than Jason, much bigger, and I had just stepped into something I might not be able to walk out of. But I wasn't scared. Not anymore, because if there's one thing I learned today, it's that the truth doesn't destroy you. It arms you, and I had a feeling I was about to get a lot more weapons. I didn't reply to Lena immediately, not because I didn't want to, because I needed to think. That message, "You don't know the half of it," didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel like bait. It felt certain. And certainty like that doesn't come from guessing. It comes from knowing. I locked my phone and leaned back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Jason was still in the living room. I could hear faint movement, TV noise, his footsteps, the subtle rhythm of someone pretending everything was normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Not for me. And soon, not for him either. I unlocked my phone again and typed back. "Where?" No extra words. No emotion. Just intent. The reply came faster this time. "Not there. Somewhere neutral. Smart. Very smart." Which meant she wasn't careless. And if she wasn't careless, then whatever she knew mattered. "Send location," I replied. A few seconds passed. Then a pin dropped. A bar.
Dim Lily.
Low traffic. The kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. Perfect. "I'll be there in an hour," I sent. Then I locked my phone again and stood up. Time to move. I walked out into the living room. Jason looked up immediately, still watching me, still trying to read me, still thinking he had time to fix this. "I'm heading out again," I said casually. His brows pulled together. "Again?" "Yeah." "Where?" I grabbed my keys. "Does it matter?" That hit him. I saw it, because that was usually his line. He stood up. "Maya, we need to talk." I paused, just enough to acknowledge it, not enough to engage. "Later," I said. Then I walked out. This time I didn't look back. The drive to the bar felt different from everything before. Not tense, not emotional, focused, because this wasn't about reacting anymore. This was about learning, about gathering, about stepping deeper into something I didn't fully understand yet. But I was ready for it. When I pulled up, the place looked exactly how I expected. Low lights, minimal crowd, no unnecessary attention. I stepped inside and scanned the room. It didn't take long to spot her. She was sitting in the back corner, alone, watching the entrance, waiting. I walked toward her slowly, every step measured, every instinct alert. She didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't pretend. Good. I sat across from her. Silence settled between us for a moment. Not awkward, just assessing. "You're Maya," she said first. Not a question, a confirmation. I nodded slightly. "And you're Lena." She studied me, carefully, like she was comparing me to something she already knew. Then she leaned back slightly, exhaled. "Okay," she said quietly. "So you really don't know." That didn't sit well. "Know what?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly, like she was deciding how much to say. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and slid it across the table. "Look," she said. I picked it up, opened the screen, and within seconds, everything inside me went cold. Photos, not random ones, not social ones. Screenshots, documents, transfers, names, familiar names. Jason, Evan, and others. A lot of others. More than I expected. Way more. "What is this?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Lena didn't hesitate. "It's a funnel," she said. I looked up. "A what?" "A system," she explained. "Money moves through multiple people, multiple accounts. Gets cleaned, redirected, repackaged." My chest tightened. "Cleaned," I repeated. She nodded slowly. "Yeah," she said. "Washed, hidden, made to look legitimate." My grip on the phone tightened. Because now, this wasn't just suspicion. This was confirmation. "This is illegal," I said. She gave a small, almost humorless smile. "You think?" I swallowed, because the reality was starting to hit. Hard. "And Jason?" I asked. Her expression shifted slightly. "He's part of it," she said. Not unsure, not hesitant, certain. My stomach dropped. "How?" I asked. She leaned forward slightly. "He's not the top," she said. "Not even close. But he's involved enough to matter." That word again. Matter. "What does he do?" I asked. She held my gaze. "He moves money through personal accounts," she said. "Uses relationships, trust, access." My heart slowed, because suddenly, everything clicked. The shared account, the control, the decisions. Me. "He used me," I said quietly. Lena didn't respond right away, because she didn't need to. We both knew. "Yes," she said after a moment. The word landed heavier than anything else. Not because I didn't expect it, because now it was real, clear, undeniable. "And Evan?" I asked. "He's higher up," she said. "Connector, brings people in, keeps things moving." "And you?" I asked. That made her pause, just slightly. "I used to be part of it," she said. "Used to." Important word. "Used to," I repeated. She nodded. "I got out," she said. "Or tried to." That didn't sound convincing. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She looked at me differently this time. Not like she was analyzing me, like she understood something. "Because you're already in it," she said. My chest tightened again. "I didn't choose this," I replied. "Neither did I," she said. Silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't neutral. It was heavy, because now we both understood something. This wasn't just about Jason. This wasn't just about money. This was bigger, structured, dangerous, and I was already connected to it, whether I wanted to be or not. "What happens now?" I asked. Lena leaned back again. "That depends," she said. "On what?" She held my gaze for a long second, then said something that made everything shift again. "On whether you want out or you want control." My breath slowed, because that wasn't the question I expected. Not escape, not safety, power. And for the first time since this started, I didn't answer right away, because a part of me wasn't thinking about getting out anymore. It was thinking about something else, something colder, something sharper, something Jason would never expect. because if he used me to build this, then maybe I could use it to destroy him, or something bigger. I looked back at Lena. Tell me everything, I said, and the way she smiled this time wasn't reassuring. It was warning, because whatever came next, there was no going back. Lena didn't start talking right away. She just watched me, like she was measuring something. Not my fear, not my confusion. Something else, something deeper. You don't look surprised, she said finally. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms. I am. I'm just done reacting. That got a small nod out of her. Good, she said, because if you're going to survive this, reacting is the fastest way to lose. Survive. Not leave. Not fix. Not expose. Survive. That word stayed in my head longer than I wanted it to. Start from the beginning, I said. Lena exhaled slowly, like she'd been here before, like she'd had this conversation before. Maybe not with me, but with someone. It's not just Jason, she began, and it's not just Evan. This runs through layers of people who don't even realize they're connected. I frowned slightly. Meaning, she said, leaning forward. Most people think they're just moving money, or helping someone out, or investing, but they're all part of the same system. A system, that word again. Who's at the top? I asked. Lena shook her head. Doesn't matter right now. It does to me. No, she said calmly. What matters is understanding your position first. My position. I didn't like the sound of that. So what am I? I asked. She didn't hesitate. You're an entry point. That hit harder than I expected. Jason used you to legitimize money flow, she continued. Stable income, clean history, no flags, perfect cover. My jaw tightened slightly, because she was right. That was exactly what I was. Reliable, predictable, safe. Everything you'd want if you were trying to hide something. And now, I asked. She held my gaze. Now you're aware. That didn't feel like an upgrade. What does that change? I asked. Everything, she said, because now you're either a liability or an opportunity. The words landed cold, precise. No emotion. And you? I asked. What am I to you? She didn't even blink. A decision. I let out a slow breath, because that answer told me more than anything else. She wasn't here to help me. Not really. She was here to see if I was useful. Then let me make it easier, I said. What do you want? Lena studied me again, longer this time. Then she reached into her bag again, pulled out a small folder, and slid it across the table. Open it, she said. I did. Inside were printed documents, transaction logs, names, amounts, and then something else. Photos of people, Jason, Evan, others I didn't recognize, all connected, all part of something. What is this? I asked quietly. Proof, she said. My eyes moved across the pages, faster now, more focused. This is enough to expose them, I said. Lena gave a small, almost amused look. Expose? She repeated. Yeah. She shook her head slowly. That's where you're still thinking small. I frowned. Then what is it? I asked. It's leverage, she said. That word changed everything. Because leverage isn't about ending something. It's about controlling it. I leaned back slightly, processing. You don't want to take them down, I said. No, she replied. You want to control it. Yes. The honesty was unsettling. Why me? I asked. She tapped the folder lightly. Because you're already inside, she said. And they don't know you've changed. That part was true. Jason still thought I was the same. Still predictable. Still quiet. Still controllable. And that was an advantage. You want me to spy on him, I said. Not just spy, she corrected. Position yourself. For what? She held my gaze. For power. Silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was sharp. Because now the situation had shifted. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about choosing a side. And neither option was clean. You said you got out, I reminded her. I said I tried, she corrected. That difference mattered. What happened? I asked. She hesitated, just slightly, then said something that made everything colder. They don't let people walk away. My chest tightened. Then how are you here? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked around the room, quick, subtle, then leaned in closer. Because I stopped asking for permission, she said quietly. That didn't sound like escape. That sounded like something else, something more dangerous. I looked back down at the folder, at the names, at the system, at the reality I had just stepped into. Then I looked back at her. What's the move? I asked. She didn't smile, didn't hesitate. Go back, she said. To Jason. Yes. Act normal. She nodded. Let him think he's still in control. That part felt easy now. And then, I asked, her eyes locked onto mine. And then you take it from him. My breath slowed, because that wasn't revenge. That was replacement. You want me to become him, I said. No, she replied. Better. That word echoed in my head. Better, stronger, smarter, in control. I closed the folder slowly, because now, this wasn't just about what he did to me. It was about what I was going to do next. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't thinking about leaving. I was thinking about winning. I stood up. Lena didn't stop me. Think about it, she said. I nodded. But the truth? I had already made my decision. Because Jason didn't just betray me. He underestimated me. And that's something people don't recover from. As I walked out of the bar, one thought stayed clear in my mind. If he built his power using me, then I was going to be the one who took it away. And this time, I wouldn't ask. I'd take. By the time I got back to the apartment, I already knew exactly how I was going to act. Normal. Not distant. Not cold. Not confrontational. Just normal. Because the biggest mistake I could make right now wasn't trusting Jason. It was letting him realize I didn't anymore. When I walked in, he was sitting in the same spot. Same couch. Same posture. Same phone in his hand. But this time, he looked up faster. More alert. More aware. You were gone a while, he said. There was something different in his voice. Subtle, but there. Yeah, I replied casually, slipping off my shoes. Work stuff took longer. I didn't look at him right away. Didn't give him anything to read. He watched me. I could feel it. Trying to pick something up. Trying to connect something. Everything okay? He asked. That almost made me smile. Because now he was the one asking questions. Yeah, I said, walking into the kitchen. Why wouldn't it be? Silence. Then, no reason. I grabbed a glass, filled it with water, and leaned against the counter. Slow, relaxed, like nothing had changed. But everything had. I glanced at him. He hadn't moved. Still watching. Still calculating. Good. Let him. Because now, I was doing the same. How was your day? I asked. That caught him off guard. I saw it instantly. Fine, he said. Same as usual. I nodded, like I believed him, like I always had. But now I was paying attention to everything. The tone, the timing, the way he avoided details. Because once you see patterns, you can't unsee them. I sat down across from him. Same position as last night. But this time, I wasn't the same person sitting there. You look tired, he said. Just thinking, I replied. About what? I shrugged slightly. Life. That answer hung in the air longer than it should have. Because it meant nothing. But also, everything. He shifted slightly. Uncomfortable. You've been off, he said again. There it was. His instinct. Trying to label it. Control it. I tilted my head slightly. Off how? He hesitated. Just different. Good. Maybe I am, I said calmly. That made him pause, because I didn't deny it. And, he asked. I looked at him directly now. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Silence. Heavy this time, because that wasn't the answer he expected. I stood up before he could respond. Walked past him. I'm gonna shower, I said. Same routine. Same words. Different meaning. The moment I closed the bathroom door, my entire expression changed. Not emotional. Focused. Because now, the game had started, and I was officially in it. I turned on the shower, letting the sound fill the space. Then I pulled out my phone, opened the folder Lena gave me. This time I looked deeper. Not just names, connections, patterns. Jason wasn't random. He was positioned. Middle layer. Not the bottom. Not the top. Important enough to matter. Expendable enough to replace. That part stuck with me. Replace. Because if he could be replaced, then so could his role. And if I understood it correctly, I could take it. I zoomed into one of the documents. Transaction routing. Movement patterns. It wasn't complicated. That was the scary part. It was simple, repeatable, efficient, designed to look normal, designed to avoid attention, designed to use people like me. My jaw tightened slightly, not out of anger, out of clarity, because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I was learning, and the more I learned, the more dangerous this became. I turned off the shower and stepped out, dried off quickly, composed my expression. When I walked back into the bedroom, Jason was there, leaning against the wall, waiting. That wasn't normal. "What's up?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "We need to talk," he said. There it was. Too soon. He felt it. The shift. Not fully, but enough to react. "About what?" I asked. His jaw tightened slightly. "You showing up there today," he said. That wasn't random. So he was skipping the surface, going straight to it. Good. I shrugged lightly. I was in the area. He didn't buy it. I could see that. "Don't do that," he said. "Do what?" "Act like nothing's going on." I almost laughed, because that's exactly what he'd been doing. "I'm not acting," I said calmly. He stepped closer. "You saw something," he said. "So just say it." There it was again. Control. Trying to pull information out. Trying to manage the situation. I held his gaze. "I saw enough," I said. His expression shifted. "How much is enough?" he asked. I tilted my head slightly. "Enough to know you've been lying to me for a long time." That hit. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because now he knew I knew something. But not how much. And that uncertainty? That was power. "Maya," he started. I raised a hand slightly. "Don't," I said. He stopped. Because that tone? That wasn't the one he was used to. "I'm not stupid," I continued. "So don't treat me like I am." Silence. Then, "It's complicated," he said. Of course it was. "It always is," I replied. He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand what this is," he said. That almost made me smile. "You're right," I said. That caught him off guard. Because he expected resistance, argument, emotion, not agreement. "But I'm going to," I added. That's when something changed in his eyes. Something sharp. Something cautious. "Why?" he asked. I stepped closer. "Because whatever this is," I said quietly, "you involved me in it." Silence. "And I don't like being used," I finished. That landed. Heavy. Final. He looked at me differently now. Not like before. Not like someone he controlled. Like someone he needed to figure out. And that was exactly where I wanted him. Because the moment he starts questioning me is the moment I start controlling the game. I stepped back. "I'm going to bed," I said. Simple. Normal. Like the conversation didn't just shift everything. But as I walked past him, I felt it. That tension. That awareness. That realization. He knew something was different now. He just didn't know what. And that was my advantage. Because tomorrow, I wasn't just going to observe anymore. I was going to step deeper, closer to the center, closer to the truth. closer to the point where Jason wouldn't just lose control. He'd realize he never had it to begin with. And when that moment came, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. It would be quiet, sharp, final, just like the moment everything changed for me. The worst part wasn't the betrayal anymore. It wasn't even the lies. It was how quiet everything became after the truth settled in. Silence has a weight to it. And in that moment, standing in my office while Jason stared at me like a stranger and Olivia sat there pretending she still had control, I could feel that weight pressing down on all of us. But I wasn't crushed by it. They were. Jason ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a man trying to find an exit in a room with no doors. His confidence was gone now. The smugness, the manipulation, the fake calm he always used to control every situation. It had all cracked. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said finally, his voice low, almost desperate. I leaned back in my chair, calm, steady, completely in control. "No," I said. "You don't understand what you already did." Olivia scoffed, but it sounded forced this time. "You think you've won? You exposed some emails. That doesn't destroy us." I tilted my head slightly, studying her. It amazed me how people like her always underestimated the long game. "This," I said quietly, "this isn't the destruction. This is just the announcement." Jason stopped pacing. That got his attention. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I reached into the drawer of my desk and pulled out a thin black folder. I didn't rush. I didn't dramatize it. I just placed it on the table and slid it toward him. He hesitated before opening it. That hesitation told me everything. He already knew. He just didn't want confirmation. Olivia leaned in first, impatient, grabbing the folder and flipping it open. Her expression changed almost instantly. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost satisfying. Jason noticed. "What is it?" he asked, stepping closer. She didn't answer, so he took the folder from her hands. And then he saw it. The offshore accounts, the hidden transfers, the shell companies tied directly to his name. Not just internal fraud, criminal-level fraud. His breathing changed. "You?" He looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. "You went through my personal accounts?" I didn't blink. "No," I said. "I followed the company's money. It just happened to lead straight to you." "That's illegal," Olivia snapped. But there was no real force behind it anymore. "Actually," I replied calmly, "what's illegal is what's inside that folder." Jason dropped into the chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. For the first time since I had known him, he looked scared. Not angry, not defensive, scared. And that was the moment I knew it was over. Not just the relationship, not just the betrayal, everything. "You're going to turn me in," he said. It wasn't a question. I leaned forward slightly, resting my hands on the desk. I already did. Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that doesn't leave room for arguments or manipulation. Olivia stood up abruptly. "We're leaving," she said, grabbing her bag like she could still control something, anything. Jason didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the documents like they might disappear if he looked long enough. "Jason," she snapped, louder now. He didn't respond, because he finally understood. There was no leaving this. There was no fixing it. And there was definitely no coming back to me. I stood up slowly. "You should go," I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. Olivia glared at me, but there was fear behind it now. Real fear. The kind that shows when someone realizes the consequences are bigger than they thought. She walked out first. Jason stayed. Of course he did. He always stayed until the very end, hoping he could still twist something in his favor. "You planned this?" he said quietly, not looking at me. "Yes," I said. "How long?" I thought about it for a second. "Since the day I realized you thought I was weak." He let out a hollow laugh. "I never thought you were weak." I didn't respond, because we both knew that was a lie. "You could have just left," he said. I crossed my arms, watching him. "And let you do this to someone else?" I asked. "Let you walk away clean?" He shook his head slowly. You're not the person I thought you were. That almost made me smile. Exactly. He finally looked up at me, and for the first time there was no manipulation in his eyes. Just regret. Real, heavy, suffocating regret. But it didn't change anything. It didn't undo the nights he lied to me. It didn't erase the way he brought her into our life like I was nothing. It didn't fix the way he underestimated me. You're going to lose everything, he said. I shrugged slightly. So are you. That hit him harder than anything else. Because he knew I was right. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Multiple people. Firm. Official. Jason heard it too. His entire body tensed. Is that? He started. Yes, I said. The door opened before he could finish. 2 investigators stepped inside, followed by security. Professional, calm, unemotional, just like I had been. Jason Reed? One of them asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They already knew. They stepped forward. This is a formal investigation regarding financial misconduct and fraud. The words blurred together after that, because Jason wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at me, and I could see it in his face. The exact moment it all clicked. This wasn't revenge. This was consequences, carefully built, slowly executed, and completely unavoidable. As they stood him up and started reading his rights, he didn't resist. He didn't argue. He didn't even look at them. He just kept looking at me, like he was trying to understand how the woman he thought he controlled became the one who destroyed him. But I didn't give him that answer. I just stood there, calm, unshaken, untouchable. And when they finally led him toward the door, he spoke one last time. Not to them, to me. You never loved me, did you? I held his gaze, and for a brief second, I considered lying, giving him something to hold onto, something soft, something human. But he didn't deserve that, not after everything. So I told him the truth. I did, I said quietly, just not enough to let you ruin me. That was the last thing he heard from me. The door closed behind them, and just like that, it was over. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because what I didn't know yet was that Olivia wasn't done. Not even close. And she wasn't going to come at me the same way Jason did. She was going to hit me where I wasn't prepared. And when she did, everything I thought I had control over started to fall apart. I should have known it wouldn't end with Jason. People like Olivia don't walk away quietly. They don't accept loss, and they definitely don't forgive humiliation. They wait, they watch, and when they strike, they make sure it hurts. I just didn't expect how far she was willing to go. It started 3 days after Jason was taken in. Everything felt still. Not peaceful, just still. Like the aftermath of a storm where the damage is already done. But you haven't stepped outside yet to see how bad it really is. My office was quieter. The calls had slowed. People spoke to me differently now, carefully, like I had become something sharp. I should have taken that silence as a warning. Instead, I thought I had finally won. That morning, I walked into my office expecting another long, controlled day of cleanup. Reports, statements, legal follow-ups. The usual aftermath of burning someone's entire life down. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Something told me not to. Hello, I said. There was a pause. Then Olivia's voice. Calm. Too calm. You really thought it would end like that? Every muscle in my body went tight, but my voice stayed steady. You shouldn't be calling me. She laughed softly. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to send a chill down my spine. You took everything from him, she said. From us.
No, Irraplia.
You did that yourselves. Another pause. Then she said something that didn't make sense at first. I hope you checked your accounts this morning. My stomach dropped. I didn't respond. I just ended the call and opened my laptop. First, everything looked normal. Then I refreshed, and that's when it hit. Transactions. Large ones. Multiple. not outgoing, incoming, dirty money. Money that wasn't supposed to be anywhere near my accounts. My blood ran cold, because I knew exactly what she had done. She didn't try to fight me directly. She planted me in the middle of it, framed me. I pushed my chair back so hard it hit the wall. No, I muttered under my breath, scrolling through the details. No, no, no. Every transaction traced back to the same network Jason had been using. The same accounts I had exposed, the same illegal structure. Only now, my name was attached to it. It was smart, terrifyingly smart, because it made it look like I wasn't the one exposing the fraud. I was part of it. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't unknown. It was the legal department. I answered immediately. "Tell me you see this," I said. Silence on the other end. Then a voice I had worked with for years spoke carefully. Too carefully. "We need you to come in," he said. Now. That was all I needed to hear. The shift had happened. Just like that. I grabbed my bag and left without another word. The drive felt longer than it actually was. Every second stretched, every thought racing ahead of me, trying to piece together how much damage had already been done. By the time I arrived, the building didn't feel the same anymore. It wasn't mine, not like before. Eyes followed me as I walked in. Whispers, doubt, suspicion, the same things Jason had faced just days ago. Only now, it was me. I walked into the conference room and shut the door behind me. 3 people were already inside. Legal, compliance, external investigator. No one smiled. No one greeted me like before. "Sit," one of them said. So I did. They slid a file across the table. I didn't need to open it. I already knew what was inside. "Care to explain?" he asked. I looked up at him, calm on the outside, even though everything inside me was shifting. "Yes," I said. "I can." And I did. Every detail, every step, every piece of evidence that led to Jason. I laid it all out. But as I spoke, I could feel it, the doubt, because Olivia had done her job well, too well. When I finished, the room stayed silent for a long moment. Then the investigator leaned back in his chair. "It's a compelling story," he said. "Story, not explanation, not truth. Story." That one word told me everything. They weren't convinced. "Not yet. We'll need time to verify everything," he added. Time, which meant one thing. I wasn't in control anymore. For the first time in this entire situation, I was on the defensive. I stood up slowly. "Do what you need to do," I said, and then I walked out. But I didn't go home. I didn't run, because I knew something Olivia didn't. She thought she had turned the game. She thought she had flipped the board. But she made one mistake. She underestimated me, just like Jason did. I sat in my car, hands resting on the wheel, and let the silence settle around me. Then I picked up my phone and made one call, the only call that mattered now. "I need everything," I said when the line connected. "Every trace, every access point, every timestamp. I want to know exactly how she did it." Pause. Then a simple response. "Give me a few hours." That was all I needed, because Olivia wasn't playing defense anymore. She had made her move, and now it was my turn. The next 48 hours were a blur. Calls, data, tracing transactions, breaking down access logs. Piece by piece, we rebuilt what she had done. And there it was, hidden in the details. A mistake, a small one, but enough. She had routed the money through a secondary server. One she thought was untraceable. It wasn't. Not completely. There was a timestamp, a location, a digital fingerprint, and it didn't point to me, pointed straight to her. I walked back into that same conference room 2 days later. Same people,